Hey guys, and welcome to the rather awesome and wild replay sent in by the mighty aggressive repopulation up against Panty Esquire, both members of Clan PE, and this was sent to me under the guise of a super competitive tournament game with a title something like Try Hard 1000, and I have indeed been duped. We have a couple of campaigners on display here today, but I thought it was a rather fun battle anyway, particularly some really interesting plays by the opponent here, and it is going to be a Norsca mirror match. Let's hop into it. So in the front line, of course, as it is Norsca, it's going to be relatively cheap and cheerful. We have Marauders dotted all the way along the front line, with some Spearmen protecting the flanks and the Icehorn Marauders in this central pocket. Regiment of Renowned version, which do of course come with that immune to psychology, very useful when you're taking on the large crazy creatures that Norsca can indeed bring to the table. With a couple of Norscan Warhounds dotted on the flanks as well to either whip around behind the enemy or protect his own backline, as well as triple Marauder Hunter Javelins. These guys are some of the best long-range support in the game for taking down large creatures. Great firing arc as well to fire up over their frontline troops here. This is where things get a little bit spicy in the back line. So leading the force, we have Wulfric the Wanderer, who is the typical competitive pick in most Norscan matchups. Frog is also quite good as well. Bringing 100 champions, Fight or Die, and Sea Fang. So pretty standard stuff. But up in the skies on a mighty two-headed Chaos Dragon, we have Kihar the Tormentor. And he is looking particularly angry and badass, if we can actually get into him there in between those little heads. So he's indeed a wizard, but it looks like he's going to be used as a battery here, simply coming with Arcane Conduit. And of course, being a dragon as well with the Dark Fires of Chaos. He has regeneration, which is pretty scary stuff, particularly on a gigantic scary dragon, but it does give him that weakness to fire. And down on the ground we have Azaric the Maze Keeper. So Azaric here, basically a scaled down duck who looks a little bit more menacing as well, coming with Fight or Die, Final Transmutation, and Sear and Doom. He is unbreakable. He's basically the giant Everwatcher, shrunk down a little bit with some worse stats, but at the same time coming in with Fight or Die and some really awesome pink glowy eyes as well. Now for his opponent's build, we actually have a Skirmish-esque Norscan build, something you don't often expect. So up front we have triple Marauder Horsemen, so instead of going for the Javelins, who are generally a little bit better, going for mobility and then counter-punching with 4 units of Norscan Ice Wolves, all of which are triple silver chevron, which is some wild stuff. I don't actually hate this against enemy Norscans, because they're going to be so good at chasing down lightly armoured troops, but of course it is a little bit wild as well. In the front line we have a more cheap and cheerful Marauders, just happy to duke it out with some fellow Vikings and have an all-round good time. Leading the charge we have double Skin Wolf Werekin, a unit I personally want to get a little bit better with as well, because they're so much good fun to use. They're regeneration, they've got the immune to psych here, they can vanguard, they can do all sorts of crazy silliness. Leading this battle line, we do have Frog, the Troll King, despite the fact he is coming with no trolls. Of course, Frog is rather powerful as well. And he's got a, lovely bit of regeneration. Frostbite should do rather well up against Wulfric, as well as those large magical kind of heroes that the opponent has brought today. And for himself, he has got a campaign unit as well, the Great Moorherd of the Bloodfjord, which are Regiment of Renowned Feral Mammoths, who do indeed have Enrage, 44% damage resistance. And I mean, it's 4 mammoths in a unit. That is some rather scary stuff. So without further ado, let's get this battle underway. And of course, this is just a fun game between two friends. This obviously isn't allowed in ladder or in tournaments, simply because of all the magical units and so forth. But the Tormentor is going to be flying up over the skies. You can see the Spearmen taking huge damage straight out the gate by the Marauder Horsemen, although the Spearmen aren't going to be allowed to charge top of the Ice Wolves. These guys certainly need to pull back, but it looks like the opponent's micro is kind of focused down on getting rid of the Maze Keeper. But in comes the Dragon, so we do have a massive fat jaw going down here, but the mighty Frog is beating the snot out of the Maze Keeper. I can now turn and quite happily engage the Tormentor. He does have the double Skin Wolf Werekin bodyguards here, so he's certainly going to be having a good time. And Frog is so massive, look at him stare in the eyes of that Dragon and pound him down. Huge hits coming in throughout. Lovely little Sea Fang does come down though, annihilating some of the Marauders here. And it looks like so far, the Marauders in the backline desperately trying to keep up with the Great Moorherd here, who are taking huge amounts of damage at this point. They popped in rage, but the leadership is rather struggling. The Maze Keeper and Spearmen starting to saturate on top of them, but we have a huge Final Transmutation, which did indeed go down, catching Frog and both the Werekins and the Marauders, who have now been terrified off, doing some really lovely damage. But that Dragon has just been slaughtered where it stood. Frog takes no prisoners, beating the crap out of the Tormentor, force him off the battlefield. 1 or 2 big more hits should be able to shatter that guy for good. Elsewhere in the front line, it's been a little bit of a wash. The Marauders basically just bounce up against Marauders as Ice Wolves do charge in to attempt to support. And the back line here with some lovely pressure by the Horsemen, getting some big damage done down onto Wulfric the Wanderer. the Moorherd has started to run for the hills. A lot of the Norscan Ice Wolves are struggling, but now they are hopping on top of the key targets, shutting down the javelins, which is going to allow the Skin Wolves to really do the damage to Wulfric. And if Frog can disengage from these Marauders, get over here and help out, this could be an early game. But instead, it looks like the Maze Keeper is being floated around, trying to duel the Skin Wolf Werekin, doing it rather effectively as well. He does do magic damage, which should be able to get through some of that tougher outer skin here of the Werekin. In the distance, a Searing Doom does come down, but well dodged so far by the red Norscan player, moving his horseman forward, and that's just putting him in even more of a danger zone for Wulfric the Wanderer, who is getting absolutely pin-cushioned and slaughtered here. Frog is showing him who is the true leader of the Norscan tribes, and of course it couldn't be no Manlin, it has to be the mighty troll himself, and there's simply no escape here for Wulfric. He's going to be chased off the battlefield by Norscan Ice Wolves if the player is paying attention. Equally, he's using them to hunt down javelins, which is a good pick as well, as they're one of the best ways back into the game, although balance power is looking pretty terrible so far for the green Norscans. And with that, it looks like the army is indeed shattering here. The Maze Keeper is the last magical beast standing, trying his best up against overwhelming odds. He actually beats that Werekin down into the ground, into the blood and mud, going down with a bit of a fight here, perhaps trying to do one big last fat soul sealer to really pack a punch. Moorherd not doing too bad though. They did rally to the cause and have now once again surrounded the beast. But these Skin Wolves are really MVPs, being used to hunt down the big dragon at the start, hunt down Wulfric, and now hunt down the Maze Keeper. That is 3 for 3, and I believe those Werekins are both relatively healthy at this point as well. Well, saying that, the one on the left is a little bit beat up, but he should be able to regenerate quite a lot of that. Looks like the Norscan Forces army falling back into a Searing Doom, which isn't going to go too well for them, although it looks like it may well be dodged, and will just luckily kind of missed in between the two contingents of troops, and it looks like he's just allowing the Moorherd to duke it out here with the Maze Keeper in a rather cinematic final. They're here to defend the clan up against scary, chaotic influences. The Maze Keeper will go down here. 848 health. Of course, he is unbreakable, but he's taken a few cheeky javelins to the flank from the Marauder Horseman. He actually manages to beat back the great Moorherd of the Bloodfjord, who are going to be fleeing for the hills here, down to just 660 health themselves. The Norscan's going to have to intervene here, and it looks like Frog is bouncing his way over to call, just a little bit of justice here, and bring it back for the beasties. Lord of the Horsemen are being a little bit cheeky, though, still throwing in javelins, trying to skewer the challenges in their favour. And as Rick the Maze Keeper down to just 600 health, in comes Frog to try and protect his babies, and he should certainly be well equipped to deal with the Maze Keeper in one-on-one combat. But over the carcass of one of his fallen children, he is going to wreak vengeance, trying to reach the inner Dowie in him. And he actually just lightly taps the Maze Keeper with his foot to finish him off. But a close defeat there, and a really fun game. Before we get into the end stats, hope you guys enjoyed. It was a little bit of a silly video that I thought I'd bring to you guys. I didn't have time to pre-record a video yesterday, so I've kind of got back from work and doing one quite late, so I thought I would choose just a nice little quick fun replay before going back to the more serious ones from tomorrow onward. But very well played to these two troops, Aggressive Repopulation and Panty Esquire, which I believe is Deadly Bunnies and Noob for Life, just going under different names here. But really fun stuff. I actually quite like the idea of kind of Skirmish Norsca, but bringing some really fun units as well. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, feel free to hit that big old thumbs up button, as well as subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. We do have a video every single day, as well as some streams dotted throughout the week. And feel free to comment. I read all the comments. Unfortunately, I don't really reply to too many of them anymore, just because there's quite a lot on multiple different videos. But I really do enjoy reading them, so yeah, feel free to do that if you would like. And if you'd like to see your own replays up on the channel, feel free to join my Discord, link down below. It doesn't seem to work for some people, and others it does, which is a bit odd. But basically, if you're on any of the big Total War Discords, simply send me a message and I can get you added and all that good stuff. But yes, saw Panty Esquire and his glorious victory. Frog was an absolute champ. 2,195 damage value, 6,700 damage dealt. He was a perfect counter for all of Aggressive Repopulation's build. Of course, apart from those pesky hunter javelins, but he had all the Ice Wolves to really shut them down. And it was just basically a big threat overload for the most part. Skin Wolf Werekins coming in doing fantastic damage, 1,500 damage value here, 1,600 here, as well as big damage dealt, 6k and 4.8, with some decent kills to boot. But their main purpose, of course, was to protect Frog, one, as his bodyguards, but also just hunt down those key targets and characters. They did that very well, flexing with no caster. Something I really don't recommend, but of course this was a meme battle, so it is understandable. Giving up the front line as well, just a few cheap Marauders to allow for the rest of the build to really whittle in and whittle the damage down on the enemy and kind of win the victory here. And we can see the More Horsemen did relatively well as well, pretty much all full health and a ton of ammunition on them at the end of the game. Norsca Ice Wolves did struggle to make back their value. Some of them performed rather well, but that was them chasing down troops. The rest of them kind of just got absolutely nuked and destroyed, or pretty much no value. And the Great Moorherd of the Bloodfjord did relatively well. 8,700 damage dealt is nice stuff, and they certainly helped chew through a lot of that chaff in the front line. But they struggled a little bit on damage value, only 1,000, which I think they're probably pretty expensive as they are a regiment of renown. But, you know, still, they did okay. Good distraction card effects to allow the hero core to really seal the deal. Now for the forces of Mr. Aggressive here. Again, pretty fun stuff. I love the Maze Keeper as well as the Tormentor, particularly trying to use him as a battery up in the skies, but he really should have stayed up in the skies where he could breath attack Frog down, breath attack the Skin Wolves before committing to a fight, as of course he did get in there pinned in and trapped, which we've seen happen so many times to dragons. They're really glass cannon, very powerful beasts, but if you do land and get kind of a little bit stuck, you are indeed going to be in trouble. Maze Keeper fared much better, mainly due to those final transmutations, allowed it to get 10,000 damage dealt, 2,400 damage value, but he really was outmatched as his bodyguard left him rather early on. Wolfric as well did end up struggling, just so many hard counters to him throughout the opponent's build. Marauders in the front line didn't do fantastic as expected, and the Hunter Javelins, although some managed to start getting some decent value, by that point their front line had just been stampeded on by the Great Moorherd of the Bloodfjord as well as Frog, and then it got shut down rather quickly. But super fun game, glad these guys sent it in. Until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.